a Ford motor in a Buick that looks like a 3/4 size Corvette. Yep. Oh, that makes sense. Dan here, DD Speed Shop. Today we're going to do something I've never ever done before, and I'm excited to butcher it together and see how it turns out. I have an idea in my head. We'll see if we can translate that to metal bits. Now, as you see, we have no intake manifold in this thing. Luckily, it did have a 2-piece intake plenum. The issue we have run into is this. The motor, obviously being a 2.3 turbo out of like an SVO Mustang in this little Opel, raises a lot of fitment issues. The problem we're having, we managed to get it widthwise fit by cutting out a lot, and we have a height issue. Unfortunately, we're right on the cross member. We can't go any more down, and going up, we're into the hood. So right now, I believe the hood should fit. I actually got to double check this timing cover. We might have to put a little splice in the hood. But the real issue we ran into was the intake plenum went up over the valve cover and fed into the turbo, and that actually, this is the latch, nothing was fitting there. I'll show you on the bench what I'm talking about. So this is the original intake plenum. As you can see, I turned the light on there, it went up over the valve cover into the turbo. So not only was it big and obtrusive, it was also pretty ugly. So we need to replace this and essentially put it where we do have a little bit of room. And I've got the alternator just sitting on it, but realistically the intake plenum has to go over and here, and then throttle body in the front. So how are we going to do that? I'm not too sure. We're going to make a sheet metal intake out of steel. Now, it wouldn't look like this is all you need. Actually, that was part of the sheet metal intake. We got this 1/4-inch plate. That'll be our flange material. I had this 1-inch pipe kicking around. I don't know what this is from, but the holes are 1 inch, so that should be fine. So we're essentially going to have to trace out our little piece, which is our gasket. This will be our base plate flange. So we're going to go ahead and CNC this with the grinder. Trace that out. Drill our little holes in there. Then we can kind of angle this out and up. Build our little box in this area. Have another plate on the front of our box, which will be this shape, whatever that is. And then the intake will be able to go forward. Now with that all happening, the throttle body facing forward, be able to run through the core support, across through an intercooler, back through, then we'll have to figure out a 90 on our turbo. And I mean, it'll actually be the other way. It'll go out of the turbo in the intake. But we're going to work on the intake side. They do sell fancy, expensive intakes for this motor, and the intake manifold costs more money than I paid for, well, basically the entire car. So we're trying to keep the budget friendly. We kind of fluked out the fact that it's a 2-piece manifold, and on the top piece it was just vacuum. On the bottom we have all our injectors and all that sort of stuff. So it should be rather simple. In theory, it might not be pretty, but we'll see if it works. If it does work, we can always refine it, and maybe I'll remake one out of aluminum, and I can test my, well, I do have an aluminum welder. I got to get better at it, and today is just not the day to get better. So step 1, trace and cut this out, a nice flat piece, make a nice flange. We'll drill our holes, and we'll get this set on top of the motor, and we'll start working from there. So we got the manifold, or the flange, I should say, started. My step bit is junk, so that's about as big as we're gonna get right now. I gotta run out and get another step bit, but all the holes line up, so we're fine there. Now my next thought is, we have to get our air box we're gonna build up and over. That's where this comes in. So if we do something like that, that'll put it over there. And it's gonna be a rather small air box. This is 3.5, but that'll sit kind of beside it, right just on the other side. We should be able to get most of the bolts in. So we'll do one there, other side there. It'll only be a couple or 3 inches wide. A 3 by 3 by 10. 3 tall, 3 wide by 10, yeah. So it'll be kind of a smaller plenum. I don't really think that matters a whole lot. This won't be the most restricted part of the system. And we'll keep kind of going from there. Now, I do gotta get some more step bits, or I gotta get a proper step bit, drill that out. And then I think what we'll probably do is maybe just drill some holes in this and then start tacking it all together, see what it looks like, just so we'll have this piece into the 3. Unfortunately, all 3 of these are, or 4 of these are in different spots. It's kind of awkward. This bolt here is the only one I'm concerned about. It might be tricky to get a bolt in there, so hopefully we can get the 2 pipes to go around or up at a funny angle. And the other thing is we could drill this right out and put a bolt in from the bottom and a nut on the top, which is, there'll be lots of room for that. Everything else should be able to got, and we can drill them all out. This is the only one that's blind, so we gotta put that's on the easy side of the plenum. So we can do all that, and then we gotta have just a big box at the front, big flange, where the throttle body will bolt to, which should be fairly simple. Everything is kind of oversized built, but quite small for airflow. So I don't think we need it to be ginormous, and we're using, I mean, I think this is 3/16 or whatever this is. So, I mean, everything is overkill. Mostly it's either sheet metal, like 18 gauge, or this. So that's what's free. So that's what we're using. Easy to weld to. I put a lot of heat to it. It won't warp, and it'll be nice and sturdy. So yeah, that'll be a little box right there into our, hopefully, throttle body right there. So I'm gonna run and get some step bits, take a break, think about it a little bit. Hopefully you guys aren't furiously typing how wrong I am, and we'll keep going. Mark 1 version. We may have a couple of different ones down the road, but this is where we're at right now. So, something about, I was kind of thinking, I thought, there's gotta be a smarter way to do it. And I keep thinking this thing has to be big and obnoxious, but it's such a small little car, small little ports. I thought, I have something for this. A piece of exhaust pipe, 3-inch. I just put one ugly piece in to hold it. I have it slightly cocked over, because this thing is just freaking ginormous. But look how small that little intake is. That's 1.5 inches maybe. So if we have that, I'll have to weld a flange on there, but it can sit. I guess we got to watch the alternator actually. It might have to even be more tilted over now that I think about it, because this has to come up. Man, this is a pain. Well, let's move the whole flange over. Yeah, something like that. That's what it's got to be. Or I could offset this actually. Anyways, so here are my thoughts. I have this just tacked on. I can make my little pieces, put all that in, cap the back. We can put this on. Oh, that can sit anyway. Guess it doesn't really matter. But essentially that is kind of what we're going to be shooting for. It looks a little goofy, but once it's all together and painted, I think it'll look just fine. And once I get everything set, then I can take this and clamp this to the bench. And I mean, the holes aren't going to change. The flanges are all fine. So it should work out. So I think that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do a little bit of figuring here, and then we'll go over, we'll clamp it to the bench, so hopefully it'll stay flat. We're welding it. And essentially we'll do one tube at a time, kind of mark it, drill it, weld it, carry on, and then we'll go back to the first one, cut it off, and go from there. I can't see what could go wrong. Okay, so miraculously, the hood fits, and everyone's concerned, I think, about the cam gear there, but it's, look at that, there's nothing there. The hood is, I mean, it's nothing latched or whatever, but it fits good. This is hitting the back metal. So let's go ahead and peel this off real quick. I'm learning as I get older. test fit everything 15 times. It saves you a bunch of screwing around. So now what we got going on here, I just made a plate, tack welded it, and just bolted the throttle body to it. So we have it as far over as I feel comfortable going. I mean, that's about all we can really do. This is, I mean, everything's loose, but it's all bolted in, about in place. Obviously the hood closes. You know, we have full throttle. There's a few, these bolts down there, they're gonna be drilled out and nut and bolt from the bottom for sure. There's just no way around it. And then the alternator, it will have some swing. I mean, it won't be great. We'll have to for sure like screwdriver the belt on so it'll be snug and then give it the old, that's all it's getting. But what are you gonna do when you're modifying stuff? Almost dropped it there. You get to modify, so we should be okay there. I mean, we also could, and I've had the thoughts, we can modify this bracket in the future and we could lower the alternator, and then the alternator would be down here and in the same line. As long as it's in line, it doesn't really matter. So that's also an option, but one thing at a time. We might just fluke out. So now we can take this off and start making our tubes in. Weld that all, weld this all in. I will have to get a hole saw for that. I don't know if I have a metal hole saw. Again, it's like 1.5 or 2 inch, not very big. But we should be able to dial that all together. So let's clean the workbench off a little. By clean it off, I mean jam stuff off to the side. And start cutting little pieces of water pipe. So we're on the bench, and this is where it's gonna get a little, a little complicated. So what I did, I got the first one just tacked on. I figured I'd kind of show you the second one, and we just figure out as we go. So pretty simply, you line up your hole, you kind of radius your little piece of pipe. So that's what we start off with, just some sort of a cut, eyeball it, and then I just start auging it out. We end up with something like this. Just put it in the snow so I can touch it. So we get the flat side, and then the beveled side, so it fits in there, kind of something like that. And then I just marked around with the Sharpie, and obviously we're doing the outside. Drill a big honking hole through it. I then clean it up with the little sander. And the next thing I'll do is I'll just kind of get it pretty close to where I want it, and we'll give it a tack weld. It should be good. I should be able to get all the way around and shouldn't have too many issues. I wonder if I should do this one the whole way around first real quick, and then I'll put this one in versus trying to do them both together. I think I might do that. So we'll get the camera set up, we'll get those two welded, and once those are done, I can actually cut this one right out and make the this one, well, I'll trace this one first and make this one easy to get. And we got one more to make, and that's a matter of welding the snot out of it. We got to put a cap on the back, so same thing, I'll weld it around and make it look nice. I got a bunch of that stuff left. It looks a little ugly, but I have confidence that once it's all kind of together, it'll look goofy, but the right kind of goofy. I mean, if you ever look like an intake manifold, they don't make any sense. And well, by looking at them, they make no sense. Obviously, they do based on flow and all that sort of stuff. But we'll do this, and then we can just kind of port match the intake at some point in the future. I doubt that'll be tomorrow. I just want to get this thing on, honestly, just so the motor is covered up from the elements, because, yeah, I'm kind of done with this thing. The GoPro is out of SD card. Danny's out here. So I made this thing. So I ended up modifying. I had to open it up because I had it too tight. I couldn't weld in the back. So I got that all taken care of. It's a little ugly. And I just welded the whole thing. So it's all wire wheel and we'll paint it. I then just traced out a circle. I put this plunk down, painted it. We'll cut that out with the grinder. And then we can slap that on the back side. This now does stick up a little bit more, just for some clearance. So I think what I might do is I'll cut this at a slight angle down, and then the throttle body will actually point down. I did put this on and check the hood still fits. So we're in the clear. It's it looks how it looks. It's definitely not the fanciest looking thing, but we'll paint it black or red or whatever. Put the intake or throttle body on, and we'll see what we got. I mean, air will flow through it. And we still got to auger out this. Not much actually, but I got to get a die grinder. I got the, these holes are pretty big. So I'm going to empty this SD card and then we'll be back out working. All right, so we got this unit on. I got a cap on the back. So what we're going to do is we're just going to mark the center of the top because we want to essentially cut it at an angle that way. It doesn't need much, but just a little bit. So I might kind of put a little eyeball on it or something like that. We always cut it twice, but something along those lines is what we want, so that the intake will be, or the throttle body will be facing kind of downwards, and then we'll just snake it through into the core or cowl, whatever you want to call it. So I'm gonna take this off, put a piece of tape on it, zip zip. I got to take the plate off. The initial Mark 1 version. Where did I put it? Oh, right here. Yeah. Got to circle it with the grinder. It can be done. Also, I toasted my drill. Just got to cut this plate off, two little tack welds. Then we can weld that onto the new pipe. Paint it black. And that's all the time I got for tonight. It is Saturday, live stream. Should have been there. So in the live stream there, we're gonna put the wheels on, put the hood on, drop it down. And tomorrow we'll show this thing when it's all taken care of and push her outside. Man, I got some princess hair going on there because Nomad's coming in. All right, well, the DT Speed Shop original. She's there. So everything worked out pretty good. The base flange maintained. This one ear kind of bent up, but it's pretty good, pretty flat. This piece here is nice and flat. It should be good. The only thing I did notice, if we actually flip this thing upside down and have the throttle on the other side, so you'd have to pull on the kick down versus the top. It's kind of irrelevant though. We get a lot more room. So I kind of tilted her so she's a little off kilter, but we do have a fair amount of swing in the alternator. So it should be good. I'm pretty impressed with that. So anyways, that's what we're doing for tonight. I'm going to let this cool off and put a coat of paint on it. And then, I don't know, we might pressure test it tomorrow or just leave this for another day. It's a nice little exercise just to see what's possible. And ultimately, I don't know. I guess we'll see how it works. I'm sure some of you YouTube engineers let me know how wrong it is in the comment section, but I'm happy with it. And ultimately, once it's painted black, I don't think anyone will notice. Looks terrible. See you tomorrow. So it's the next day. Hood is on. We did our live stream last night. Intake's on. It's painted. I showed it to my old man, sent him a picture. You know what he said? Looks like something somebody would have put together in the 50s and it's crude. I thought it looked fantastic. Honestly, it's a good start, but it will probably need to be redone, and I'd like to do it out of aluminum, but we'll see what happens. So there it is. It's definitely not perfect. I don't know if I showed it before, but I welded up in between everything the whole way around. I didn't want any leaks. I haven't pressure tested it, obviously, but I think it looks okay. It needs to be the base cleaned up and stuff like that, but it fits on there. I think we have lots and lots of room. I mean, from this side, it looks very simple. Definitely out of aluminum would be very nice, but I think you have to be a little more concise. The real issue we run into is just the fact that it's not very tall and it's off to an angle, so it's easy to weld the one side. The back side is quite hard it's quite hard to get to. You just don't have enough. And maybe TIG welding would be easier. I'm not really too sure. But yeah, we're golden. We have lots of throttle there. The alternator has all sorts of flex. You'll just put, man, this little tripod here I got. Oh, I'm struggling. Oh, there's legs on that side. The hood, look at this. The hood goes down. Closes just fine. I mean, you can hear it fits at the back there. Now right in the center is where the timing gear would be, and obviously it's not there, so we're fine on that. And back here, we got all sorts of room. So I think it's a pretty big success. Whether or not this is the intake we use or not is kind of irrelevant, but just to show that it can be done. We'll have to get some 90s and down here. I don't know much about turbos, I'm not gonna lie. I've seen lots of stuff on eBay and Amazon, just kind of universal, you know, 2.5 inch pipe that goes into a intercooler. So we'll probably look at something like that. I do have the wiring harness. If I said they're not on order, but it's gonna be a ways away. So I think I'm gonna order front brakes and back brakes just to have all new stuff. I'm obsessed with brakes if I can find it. Opel stuff's a little weird, but if I should be able to find that, we can do the brakes. The front end look pretty tight. We gotta figure out steering, so I'm gonna have to get some of that bar stock and some different U-joints. So I've got a little list of stuff to order. Unfortunately, I think a lot of it's going to have to come off of eBay, which does take a little while for me to get, being in stupid Canada. So it's going to go aside for a little bit right now, and we'll come back, maybe intercooler, radiator, stuff like that. I got to do a little measuring. I'm hoping I might be able to fit a Tri-5 radiator in there, because they're not very wide and they're quite tall. Tri-5 center in and offset out. So it's a little goofy because the thermostat, well, we might be able to figure something out there with the inlet. We'll play with that down the road, but realistically, we've got ourselves a pretty slick little unit. The fuel system on this is super simple. The factory one had an external electric pump, so we'll use the existing tank, line into pump or filter pump, and then up to the front, there's just, this is the fuel line right here into the rail, and there's no return. So that's very simple. Give it 12 volts. So we have the computer. I don't think we have a whole lot to worry about. This was the tricky part. The motor ran kind of mediocre in that car. I'm hoping it's just bad gas and stuff like that, but we'll figure it out together. Now, we've cleaned this thing up. I polished up some of the roughness. What a good looking car. I never polished that. So guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna push it outside and pull a Nomad in. So there's no steering, should be fun. Watch me struggle. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, I really do appreciate that. And we got Facebook going, and we were talking about yesterday in the live stream. What we're thinking we're gonna do is, if you guys have any interest, you guys always want to show us your cars. We love seeing them. The easiest way to do it would be go find us on Facebook, just DD Speech Up on Facebook. You can then send us pictures of your cars, and we can post viewer cars. So if that's something you're interested in, wow, I'm tired. We'd appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one. Come on, this looks pretty good. Okay, I'm by myself. Video's over, and there's no steering on this thing anymore. Somebody took it out so the motor would fit, but oh, now it's going to weigh more because there's a motor in it. It'll be fine. please subscribe.